You ever get that gut feeling before something bad happens? Not the screaming kind, not like sirens blaring in your chest. No, it was quieter than that, like a low hum in the back of your mind that you almost don't hear until it's too late. That's how it started with Laura's invitation. She came home one evening, glowing with that nervous excitement she usually saved for company events. I was sitting on the porch, watching the neighbor's kid try to ride a scooter down our sloped driveway, half proud, half sure he was about to break an arm, when she parked her car and walked up like she had good news. "I signed us up for my company's couples retreat," she said, keys jingling in her hand. "It's this 3-day thing in the mountains, wellness, team bonding, nature hikes, and some meditation stuff. Should be fun." I gave her a raised eyebrow and a half smile. "Couples retreat? You sure your company wants to see us arguing over how to pitch a tent?" She laughed, a little too quickly. "No tents. It's a resort. With, like, cabins and organic food and hot stone massages." That was the first flag. Not red. Maybe just pale pink. Laura worked in marketing at this fancy tech startup that seemed to exist half in reality and half in buzzwords. Every other month, they were having some kind of mental wellness week or silent yoga rave. Still, I wasn't going to turn down 3 days off in the mountains. God knows we needed it. Our marriage had grown quiet. Not cold exactly, but like a room where someone turned the volume down halfway and forgot to turn it back up. I'd been working long hours doing HVAC repair, and Laura was glued to her phone more than ever. Always just checking in with the team at weird hours, typing with her thumbs while her dinner got cold. We used to laugh a lot. Lately, it was more like awkward silence and tired smiles. "Sure," I said. "Sounds like we could use it." And that was that. Or so I thought. The retreat was nestled up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, about 2 hours from our place in North Carolina. One of those woodsy resort places with pine-scented air, overpriced granola, and a staff that used the word mindful like it was seasoning. We checked into our cabin Friday afternoon. It was cozy, with a king bed, a little fireplace, and a welcome basket that included cucumber water, a journal, and, oddly, a yoga mat rolled up like a gift. Laura seemed a little jittery. Not enough for me to really question anything, but enough for me to notice. She laughed too loud at the receptionist's corny jokes, fumbled her phone, kept checking our cabin window like she expected someone to be watching. That night we went to the welcome mixer. It was hosted in a glass lodge with exposed beams and a fireplace roaring in the center. Everyone was sipping herb-infused mocktails and pretending to be more enlightened than they probably were. A guy in a scarf explained to me the 5 love languages of corporate synergy. I nodded like I understood. Laura wandered off to talk with a group of her coworkers. That's when I met David. Tall guy, sharp suit even in the woods, and a handshake that lingered a little too long. "So, you must be Laura's husband," he said, smiling with his teeth, like I was a contestant on a game show and had just guessed wrong. "Sure am," I said. "And you are?" "David. I work in strategic partnerships. Laura and I cross paths all the time. Great asset to the team." He said it like he owned the team. Laura came back just then, holding 2 drinks. When she saw us talking, she froze for a half second, barely noticeable, and then smiled too brightly. "Oh, I see you've met David," she said, as if they hadn't seen each other in years, instead of earlier that day in their open office. Something about it gave me pause. Later that night, we were brushing our teeth when I spotted a second toothbrush in the medicine cabinet. It was identical to mine, same brand, same color. Only it was a little more worn, a little more used. "Did they give us toothbrushes in the welcome basket too?" I asked. Laura spit into the sink. "What? No, I brought extras. Just in case." She was always practical like that, so I let it go. But the next morning is when that low hum in the back of my head started to buzz a little louder. We were supposed to go to this sunrise couples meditation session. Laura, who'd signed us up for it herself, suddenly got cagey. "You don't have to come," she said, tugging her hoodie tighter. "It's, like, super early. I'll probably just sleep in." "You were excited about it, though," I said. "Weren't you the one who said we should realign our emotional core, or whatever?" She hesitated. "Yeah, I've got a headache. Could you go without me and tell me how it is?" That wasn't like her. Laura was all about appearances, especially in work settings. She'd never skip something her team was doing, unless she had a reason. So I went, sat on a yoga mat next to other half-awake couples, listening to a man in a linen robe talk about shared breath and the universe's gentle vibrations. I closed my eyes, took deep breaths, tried not to think about the extra toothbrush. And when I got back to the cabin an hour later, Laura was gone. No note, no text. Her phone was on the nightstand, which was even stranger. But something else caught my eye. On the shelf above the fireplace was a mug I hadn't seen before. It was hand-painted, clearly made in one of those arts and crafts sessions these retreats always offer. On the side it read, "To my forest queen, you make every morning worth waking up for. Love, D." I picked it up, ran my thumb along the paint. I didn't know any D, but I knew one person who introduced himself like he already owned her, David. And suddenly, that low hum in my head, it became a siren. I don't know what it is about certain objects, but sometimes they hit harder than words. That mug, sitting there on the shelf, all bright and personal, it felt like someone had sucker punched me in the ribs. "To my forest queen." That's what it said, in shaky painted letters, like someone tried really hard to make it look casual but intimate at the same time. There was even a little heart at the bottom of the handle. The kind of detail you only add when you mean it. "You make every morning worth waking up for. Love, D." That last part stuck in my brain like a song you don't want to hear. Love, D. I set the mug down slow, like it might explode. It was still warm inside, like someone had just rinsed it and put it back up there, real careful. Not in the cabinet, not with the other retreat-issued mugs. No, this one had placement. Like it was part of the decor. Like it belonged. That's what got me. I looked around the cabin, trying to remember what we brought versus what was already here. The welcome basket, the yoga mat, the little lavender satchels on the pillows, that was all provided by the resort. But this mug? This wasn't some hotel trinket. It was handmade, glazed, personal, which meant someone brought it. And that someone wasn't me. I sat down on the edge of the bed, trying to catch my breath, like I'd just run a mile uphill. I stared at that mug like it was going to start talking. I wasn't a jealous man. At least, I never thought I was. I was never the type to go through Laura's phone or question her every move. But I also wasn't stupid. And things had been different lately. More texts. More nights working late. Less of her in the mornings, even when she was there. And now this. A mug with some mystery man's love note painted on it like a middle school Valentine's gift. Only this wasn't middle school. This was a married woman. My wife. Bringing some other guy's keepsake to our shared weekend retreat. Our couple's retreat. Something in me snapped. I opened the closet. I don't know what I was looking for exactly. Maybe another mug. Maybe a love letter tucked between sweaters. But everything looked normal. Her coat. My hoodie. Her retreat schedule folded neatly on a hanger like she was afraid of wrinkles. Then I saw her overnight bag. Unzipped, half open, sitting by the dresser. Inside, pajamas, that same brand of overpriced organic shampoo she always used, and a few folded notes stuck in the bottom pocket like receipts. Except they weren't receipts. They were little slips of hotel stationery, folded over twice. Each one had a single sentence. "Couldn't sleep last night. Just kept thinking about the sound you make when you laugh. We'll figure it out. I'll talk to her. I swear. You're not the problem, Elle. He just doesn't see you the way I do." My heart thudded so hard I thought the room shook. I felt my throat tighten. Not out of anger. Not yet. Just disbelief. He had a nickname for her. Elle. He'd been writing her letters. Who does that anymore? I stuffed the notes back in and zipped up the bag before I could crumble them in my hands. That's when I heard the cabin door open. Laura stepped in with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She had a cup of something steaming in her hand, probably from the retreat's cafe. She looked surprised to see me sitting there. "Oh, you're back already." "Yeah," I said. Meditation wasn't as exciting as they promised. She gave a little laugh. "Nervous, right?" Silence. I nodded toward the shelf. "You leave that mug there, or was it already in the cabin?" She froze just enough for me to notice. "What mug?" "That one. To my forest queen." Cute, right? Real thoughtful. Her eyes darted to it like she forgot it existed. "Oh, that? Yeah, I guess it's a gift from someone on the team. You know how they all are." I didn't say anything. Just stared. They do those dumb team-building things. Secret mugs, silly notes. I think David was handing them out. That name again. David. Like she pulled it from her back pocket, already polished. She sipped her drink and turned toward the window. "How was the session? You know? Breathing. Inner peace. Learned how to unclog my chakra, or whatever." She laughed again. It sounded faker this time. "I also learned something else," I added. She looked at me then. "Yeah. that they have these motion-activated trail cameras outside the cabins. For wildlife, apparently. Deer, bears, maybe the occasional coworker. That wiped the smile off her face. I didn't know that, she said. Neither did I, until the instructor mentioned them. I stood up. They upload to the cloud automatically. Kinda neat. I guess they want to keep tabs on anything snooping around after dark. Silence. I watched her eyes. They were racing now, like a computer stuck in a loading loop. I don't know what you think you saw, she started. I didn't say I saw anything, I replied. But if I did, I'm sure the timestamp would be around midnight. Just after the group Esmores ended. Maybe when you went out for a walk. Alone. She looked down. Her lips pressed into a line. Then she said, quietly, Brian, I didn't plan for this to happen. Not like this. I scoffed. Not like this. You dragged me to a retreat where your boyfriend was already waiting. It's not. He's not. She stopped. It's complicated. No, it's not. I said, my voice calm but cutting. You were seeing someone behind my back. You brought me here thinking what? I wouldn't notice? That I'd sit through massages and couples breath work while you made cabin visits to strategic partnerships after dark? She was crying now. Quiet tears. Always the quiet ones with Laura. Big emotions, hidden under small words. Why didn't you just leave? I asked. If you wanted out. If he makes your mornings worth waking up for. She didn't answer. I left the cabin for a while after that. Walked the trails alone. Let the trees listen to the thoughts I couldn't say out loud. I didn't want to explode. I didn't want some big blow-up scene. That wasn't me. Never had been. But I wasn't about to be made a fool either. That's when the idea started forming. I remembered what the meditation guy said about the wildlife cams. How the resort used them to track movement at night, especially near the cabins. And then I remembered something else. The guy at check-in had mentioned a guest login portal on the resort's Wi-Fi. Something about being able to access your retreat itinerary and cabin-specific nature footage. He said it was so guests could watch raccoons or foxes at night, like some kind of wholesome mountain TV. But what if someone had walked past my cabin at 1 a.m.? What if they didn't walk past, but into it? What if I could download that? Suddenly, I wasn't just hurt anymore. I had a plan. I used to think there were two kinds of people in this world. Those who confront things head-on, and those who keep swallowing their pain until it finally drowns them. Turns out, I'm a little of both. After finding that mug, after hearing Laura stammer through lies as fragile as her excuses, I could have yelled. I could have packed up and stormed out of that resort, called her every name in the book, demanded answers in front of her coworkers, made a scene. But I didn't. Instead, I walked. I slipped on my boots, grabbed a hoodie, and took a long loop around the trail behind the cabins. The wind was sharp that morning, slicing through the trees like it wanted to say something. I passed a sign for the wellness path, then the one for the mindful reflection garden. It all felt like a joke now, like the kind of place someone builds when they want to pretend everything's fine. And then I saw it. A small gray box strapped to a pine tree with a motion sensor poking out the front like a little eye. Below it, a plaque. Wildlife camera, property of Whispering Pines Retreat. Footage accessible via guest portal. I stopped. Read it again. Footage accessible via guest portal. The night before, Laura had left for a walk around midnight. Said she needed air. Stayed gone almost 45 minutes. When she came back, her hair was messy and her sweatshirt was inside out. I told myself not to ask. But now, I didn't need to. Back in the main lodge, they had this little tech nook. Looked like a computer lab at a public library, rustic edition. A staff member sat there with a headset, answering questions about Wi-Fi, printing yoga schedules, troubleshooting cabin thermostats. I walked up to her slow. Hey, I said, scratching my beard. Is it true guests can access those wildlife cams online? Oh yeah, she said cheerfully. There's a whole portal. You just log in with your room number and PIN. It'll show all the footage from the cameras closest to your cabin. It's super cute. You can even download clips. I smiled. Neat. She handed me a laminated cheat sheet with login info for our cabin. Hashtag D14, PIN 7362. I nodded, thanked her, and took a seat at one of the open terminals. My hands shook a little as I typed in the info. Cabin D14. PIN. Enter. A loading screen popped up. Welcome to Whispering Pines. Your retreat, captured in nature. Then came thumbnails, dozens of them, each marked with a time and date. each showing little flashes of motion caught by the night vision camera perched on that tree outside our cabin. I scrolled to the night before. 12:03 a.m. Laura leaving the cabin. 12:09 a.m. She walks out of frame. 12:16 a.m. Another figure enters the shot. David. No mistaking him. Tall. Dark jacket. Same athletic gait from the mixer the night before. He looks around, then casually walks right up to our door. Glances behind him. Knocks once. The door opens. Laura's face appears. She doesn't say anything. Just steps aside, lets him in, and closes the door. 12:59 a.m. The door opens again. They step out, separately. David heads off one direction, Laura the other. She pulls her hoodie up, disappears into the night. I sat there frozen. The footage playing on a loop in my head. That was it. No room for doubts. No excuses left. My wife brought me to a couple's retreat and then snuck her boyfriend into our cabin like I was some background prop in her movie. And I was done being background. I didn't leave. Not yet. I still had time. We had 2 more days left in the mountains. A schedule full of emotional growth and healing circles and trust fall nonsense. The final night was going to end with a group therapy session. Some big circle of truth thing around a fire pit, where everyone would share a moment of personal growth from the weekend. Laura had been dreading it. Now, I couldn't wait. I made a plan. Took my phone, transferred the footage, and spent the rest of the afternoon editing clips into a slideshow. Nothing fancy, just enough to tell a story. Footage of her sneaking out. Him arriving. That damn mug on the shelf. And then I added one last thing. A recording of Laura laughing at dinner that first night, followed by a freeze frame on David's smug little smile. I saved it to my cloud drive. Then I emailed a copy to someone else. There's a podcast I listen to on my commute called Invisible Suits. It's run by a former HR exec turned whistleblower, a woman named Sam Torres. She exposes toxic workplace culture, abuse of power, and shady corporate fraud. Her episodes have led to full-blown federal investigations. Last month, she did a deep dive on a tech startup being sued by a former intern for hostile work conditions. That company, the same one Laura works for. So I emailed her, told her I was a retreat guest, told her what I had, not just footage of a workplace affair, but of 2 executives conducting it at a company-sponsored ethical healing retreat. I mentioned rumors I'd overheard about financial creativity, on how retreats like this were expensed. I didn't know if it would go anywhere, but just in case, I attached the video. That night, I acted like nothing was wrong. Laura was quiet, trying to act normal, brushing her hair too much, asking if I wanted to talk about yesterday. I said we could talk after the therapy circle. She agreed. Maybe she thought that was her moment to clear the air. Maybe she was going to come clean, confess, even cry a little and beg for grace. Didn't matter. I already knew how this story ended. The fire crackled in the center of a circle made from polished logs and resin benches. About 20 couples sat around, each pair facing inward, holding hands or resting against one another. Laura and I sat side by side, her knee brushing mine like we were still in sync. She squeezed my fingers once, either out of habit or guilt, I wasn't sure. The host, a woman in a flowing cream tunic and crystal necklace, spoke gently. "This is a sacred space," she said. "What happens here is part of your growth. If something stirred you this weekend, joy, confusion, even pain, speak it. This is where we release the old and welcome the new." One by one, couples shared stories. A husband who rediscovered his wife's laugh. A woman who realized she hadn't hugged her partner in 3 years. Tears. Applause. Vulnerable smiles. Then it was our turn. Laura started to speak, but I beat her to it. "Actually," I said, standing up, "if you don't mind, I'd like to share something that really helped me grow this weekend." I pulled out my phone. Sometimes, growth comes when the truth does. And then I tapped play. The video started on the big portable screen they'd set up behind us. For tomorrow's group slideshow, they said. Funny how useful that became. It began with the footage of Laura walking out of our cabin. A few people in the group laughed, assuming it was part of a joke. Then David appeared. The laughter stopped. Someone muttered, "Is that?" Laura's hand flew to her mouth. The footage showed the door opening. Laura letting him in. The timestamp glowed bright, 12:16 a.m. You could hear murmurs now. Whispers. Someone gasped. Then came the clips of the mug. The notes. David brushing past me during breakfast. And finally, The closing shot. The camera catching them stepping out of the cabin. Half an hour later, heading in opposite directions. Silence. I looked around the circle. Every face frozen. David had gone pale. Laura was shaking. The host didn't know what to say, and I just smiled. Thanks, I said. That was my growth moment. Later that night, I sat alone in the cabin. Laura was gone. David had disappeared too, his luggage missing by the time the fire died down. I didn't go after either of them. Instead, I checked my email. One new message. From Sam Torres. Subject, this story's going live tomorrow. You okay with that? I replied, please do. The world should hear it. Then I shut the laptop and went to bed. Alone, but not broken. You know that feeling after an explosion, not the boom itself, but the eerie stillness that follows? That's what the morning felt like everything was holding its breath. When I woke up, the sun was streaming through the cabin window, same as it had the last 2 mornings. Birds chirped, the trees swayed, and somewhere off in the distance, you could hear someone hitting a gong for the sunrise yoga session. Life, as always, pretended to move on. But this time, everything was different. Laura wasn't in the cabin. Her suitcase was gone. Her retreat journal, the one she'd been scribbling in obsessively since Friday, was still on the nightstand, but the pages were ripped out. All of them. Just the cover remained. I stood in the silence for a while, letting it wrap around me. There were no goodbye notes. No text messages. No angry confrontation after the group therapy circle the night before. Just empty space where the person I married used to be. And somehow, that silence said more than anything. Word traveled fast. By the time I walked down to the lodge for breakfast, people were looking at me like I'd grown a second head. A few avoided eye contact. Others offered awkward smiles and quick nods. Some just flat out stared. One guy, an older man in khakis and hiking boots, walked past me on the porch and clapped me on the shoulder. Hell of a move last night, he said. Took guts. I gave a polite nod and kept walking. At the buffet line, the staff wouldn't even meet my eyes. The woman pouring coffee gave me an almost imperceptible wink. Guess not everyone hated what I did. I poured myself a cup and sat near the back. Alone. Didn't bother getting food. My stomach was too knotted up anyway. That's when a younger woman from the retreat, I think her name was Melissa, slid into the chair across from me. She looked around to make sure no one was watching, then leaned in. Just so you know, she said, that guy David? He's our VP of operations. Word is he left early this morning. Like, middle of the night early. Packed up before the sun came up. I nodded. Not surprised. Melissa lowered her voice. There's also a rumor that someone sent all the footage to a podcast. Sam Torres. She's been circling our company for months now. I didn't say anything. She smiled. I don't know who did it, she added, not even trying to sound innocent. But whoever it was, thank you. You lit a fuse. She stood and left. At 11:07 a.m., my phone buzzed. New episode available. Invisible Suits, EP 78, Love, Fraud, and Forest Queens. I stared at the title for a long minute. Didn't even hit play. I didn't need to hear it. I already knew how it went. But I did scroll through the episode description. This week, a story from the Blue Ridge Mountains. A corporate couple's retreat meant for mindfulness turns into a case study in deception, both personal and financial. Secret relationships, shady expense reports, and a wellness empire that isn't as balanced as it claims. We've got video. We've got emails. We've got a handmade mug. I sipped my coffee and let the words sink in. Back at the cabin, I finally checked my messages. There were a few from mutual friends. 2 from my sister, one of which just said, "Holy S***, I heard. Call me." But the biggest one, the one I couldn't stop rereading, was from Laura. It came in at 3:23 a.m. Laura, I left. I didn't know what else to do. I never expected it to go that way. I wasn't trying to humiliate you. I know I deserve what happened. But I still didn't expect it to hurt this much. Please don't respond. I just needed to say something. Even if you hate me now. I set the phone down. I didn't hate her. That was the worst part. You can love someone and still realize they're wrong for you. You can share years, memories, vacations, inside jokes, matching bathrobes, and still end up on opposite sides of a fire pit watching your marriage dissolve in public. It doesn't make it easier, but it makes it clearer. Around noon, I met with the retreat director. Apparently, they had to speak to me formally after last night's incident. It wasn't quite a reprimand, but it wasn't a handshake either. She was polite, careful, corporate. "We understand this was a deeply personal matter," she said, flipping through her clipboard. "But airing it during an official group session may have caused discomfort for other attendees." I almost laughed. Discomfort? Like that was the real problem. But I stayed calm. "I appreciate the feedback," I said. "Just out of curiosity, is the footage I showed protected under any confidentiality agreement with the resort?" She hesitated. That pause told me everything. "No," she admitted. "But we do ask guests to respect the spirit of the retreat." "Understood." She shuffled her notes. "David McAllister is no longer with the retreat. He left voluntarily. Before or after your legal team called him?" She didn't answer. I stayed one more night, mostly because I'd paid for the full weekend, and I figured I might as well enjoy one last fire under the stars before going back to reality. As I sat outside the cabin that night, legs stretched out, a blanket over my lap, I watched the trees sway in the wind and tried to remember what it felt like to trust someone fully. It had been a while. That's the thing no one tells you. It's not just the betrayal that hurts. It's how it taints the past. You start wondering how far back the lies go. You start looking at memories like old photos, trying to find cracks in the smiles. Did she look at David that way back in April when I picked her up after that work mixer? Was she texting him on our anniversary while telling me she was just checking emails? Was he the reason she pulled away whenever I touched her shoulder in bed? You don't get answers to those questions. Just echoes. The next morning, I checked out. The woman at the desk tried to act normal, but I could tell she recognized me. Probably from the podcast. As I turned in the key, she cleared her throat. "Sir," she said softly. "Just take care of yourself, okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I will." And then I walked out of the lodge and into the fresh mountain air. On the drive home, I played the podcast. Not to hear my story, to hear how she told it. Sam Torres was good. No, brilliant. She didn't sensationalize it. She walked through the facts, the footage, the context. She named names. Even quoted some of the retreat's own promotional materials. Whispering Pines Retreat is a space for healing, built on honesty, transparency, and ethical alignment. Then she played the audio of my final words at the fire pit. "Thanks. That was my growth moment." The episode ended with Sam saying, "Sometimes the best therapy is truth. And sometimes that truth reveals more than we ever expected." Stay tuned. There's more coming. That night, back in my house, I walked into our bedroom. No more shared toothbrushes. No Laura sitting cross-legged on the bed, laughing at something on her phone. No notes tucked under my pillow like she used to do during our first year together. Just me. I slept like a rock. People say a secret can destroy a marriage. But what they forget to mention is what happens when that secret destroys a company. After I got back from the retreat, I didn't jump into anything. I didn't rant on Facebook. I didn't call up her friends to explain my side. I didn't text Laura. Hell, I didn't even cry. Not right away. I just settled into the quiet. But the world around me? It didn't stay quiet for long. Monday morning, the podcast episode hit the top of the business ethics charts. I didn't even know business ethics was a category on Spotify, but there it was. #1 in the US, and by noon, top 5 in the UK, Australia, and Canada too. Sam Torres had named names. And she didn't just stop at David or Laura. She'd done her homework. Turns out, the wellness startup Laura worked for, Cimbria, had a lot more going on than scented retreats and team-building yoga. According to the episode, Cimbria's leadership had been using company retreats to funnel personal expenses. Flights for non-employee guests, off-the-book spa sessions, room upgrades billed as emotional alignment enhancement, even reimbursements for quiet meetings, which, as Sam pointed out, were just code for off-the-clock hookups. One former employee, speaking anonymously, shared emails and Slack messages between upper management joking about racking up points with HR by hosting the next Forest Fling. Another whistleblower had footage, separate from mine, showing executives using the partner massage workshops as excuses to get a little too friendly with subordinates. It wasn't just unethical. It was a powder keg waiting to go off. My video was the spark. By Tuesday, Cimbria's Twitter account was silent. By Wednesday, David McAllister's LinkedIn had vanished. And by Thursday, I got an email. From Sam Torres. Subject, "You free to talk? Hey Brian, you might want to know that Cimbria just issued a press statement. We are conducting an internal review. Blah blah. Also, 2 former employees have come forward since the episode dropped. They mentioned you specifically, said your courage gave them the push they needed. If you're open to it, I'd like to bring you on the podcast for a follow-up. Just a conversation. No pressure. Let me know. Sam. I stared at the message for a while. I'd never thought of myself as someone courageous. I just didn't want to be lied to anymore. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I went for a drive. Past the gas station where Laura and I used to get late-night snacks. Past the gym she stopped going to after she started working late. Past the little coffee shop where we'd spent one of our first dates, pretending to read books, but mostly watching each other over our mugs. And I thought about how many people probably had no idea their marriages were cracked until the day it all came crashing down. That wasn't going to be me anymore. When I got back, I replied, Sam, sure, let's talk. Brian. We recorded the next morning. She asked gentle questions. Nothing sensational, just honest. She let me tell the story in my own words. How I saw the mug, how I connected the dots, how I found the camera footage. You could have just confronted her, she said. Why go public? I thought about it. Because she brought me there under the illusion of healing, I said. But the whole thing was a performance. And I was tired of playing the fool in someone else's story. There was a pause. Then she said, that line might be the most honest thing I've heard all year. The episode dropped the next day. This time I got texts. Dozens. Some from friends who hadn't reached out since high school. Some from total strangers. Some from other people who'd gone through similar things. People whose partners cheated. People who'd stayed too long. People who knew what it felt like to wake up one day and realize their whole life was built on trust that wasn't real. And one message I didn't expect. Laura, I heard the episode. I don't have the right to say anything. I know that. But I do want you to know. I didn't start this with the intention of hurting you. I wasn't trying to build something with him. I just felt seen. And I mistook that for something deeper. It wasn't worth it. None of it. I lost more than I expected. I won't bother you again. Just, I'm sorry. I stared at the message. Read it again. Then a third time. And I didn't reply. Because forgiveness isn't something you owe someone just because they finally decided to ask for it. A week after that, Cimbria announced a full-scale internal audit. David was officially removed. Half the board resigned. Investors pulled out. The company that once prided itself on emotional intelligence and trust circles now had a trust rating of 0. Their next retreat was canceled. The spa where they hosted their infamous deep release workshops posted a passive-aggressive statement on their Instagram story. We value honesty and alignment. We do not support organizations that exploit the language of healing to cover unethical behavior. I guess even the hot stone massage industry has a limit. As for me, I went back to work. HVAC is steady. Simple. No double meanings or secret mugs. When a pipe bursts, you fix it. When a room's too cold, you warm it. Problems that show up clearly and get solved just as clearly. But I also started writing. Not for revenge. Not even for closure. Just to make sense of things. Turns out, that story I told around the fire pit, that wasn't the ending. It was the middle. One night, I got an email from a woman in Seattle. Her husband had been cheating on her with someone from his startup. She found out, listened to the podcast, and said hearing my story helped her finally file the divorce papers she'd been avoiding. I didn't know other people felt this way, she wrote. Thank you for not yelling. Thank you for just telling the truth. She signed it. Still shaky, but finally standing. You want to know the real irony? That retreat, the one Laura brought me to under the guise of healing, ended up being the most honest 3 days of my entire marriage. It was the first time I saw things clearly. The first time I chose to act instead of just react. The first time I realized that truth, no matter how painful, is still cleaner than any lie. And now, I'm finally standing too. They say closure doesn't come from the person who hurt you. It comes from what you decide to do next. At first, I didn't believe that. I used to think closure meant someone sat across from you, looked you in the eye, told the truth, cried a little, and begged for forgiveness. But I waited for that, and nothing changed. What had changed was me. It's been 3 months since the retreat. 3 months since Laura left the cabin without a word. 3 months since I hit play on that video in front of a fire pit full of strangers. 3 months since I handed our story to the internet and watched it burn the house down. And now, the ashes have settled. Cimbria, Laura's company, officially shut down last week. The final straw was a class action suit filed by a group of employees, some who'd been pushed out quietly, some who were harassed, and others who were just fed up with being used. Sam Torres had them on her podcast one by one. HR managers, receptionists, engineers, even a former CFO who left after David tried to get a personal weekend getaway, expensed as a remote strategy session. Turns out, the mug wasn't the worst offense. It was just the easiest one to understand. I watched from the sidelines as the dominoes fell, board resignations, investor withdrawals, lawsuits, and finally, a quiet press release. Cimbria will cease operations effective immediately. It was a single sentence, but behind it, dozens of broken contracts, ruined reputations, and a company that marketed healing while rotting from the inside. I don't know exactly what happened to David McAllister after the retreat. Last I heard, he was trying to consult under a new LLC. No website, no photos, just a name and a P.O. box. Cowards always retreat to the shadows when the spotlight turns on. Laura, on the other hand, she's teaching yoga now. I'm not kidding. I found out through a friend. One of those friends who still follows everyone on Instagram, even when they shouldn't. She sent me a screenshot from Laura's new account. At Healing with Laura, join me on the journey to self-awareness, peace, and rebuilding. Her profile picture was her standing on a rock near a river, arms outstretched, eyes closed. That same serene look she used to give me when she was hiding something. To her credit, she never reached out again after that last message. But that didn't stop me from wondering, once or twice, what she really felt. Did she regret it? Or just regret getting caught? Hard to say. For me, things started slowly. I fixed the screen door that had been flapping in the wind since spring. I took the time to repaint the old deck behind the house, the one Laura always said we'd get around to. I finally sorted through the old boxes in the attic, clearing out clothes and pictures and stacks of things that no longer meant what they used to. I let the silence settle. And then, eventually, I let something else in. It started with an invitation. One of the women who messaged me after the podcast, a woman named Rachel, asked if I'd be open to joining a panel she was organizing. A community event about betrayal, recovery, and rebuilding after infidelity. I hesitated. I'm not a therapist. I don't have a degree in counseling. I'm just a guy who installed heating systems and got cheated on at a couple's retreat. But she said that's why she wanted me. People trust someone who tells the truth without trying to sound smarter than they are. So I said yes. The event was held at a community center in Asheville. Just a small space, plastic chairs, bad coffee, half-working mic. But when I walked in, I saw a dozen people sitting in a circle, waiting for the panel to start. All different types. Young, old, men, women. Some wore rings. Some didn't. Some looked angry. Some just looked tired. Rachel kicked things off. Then it was my turn. I stood up. No slideshow this time. No night vision cameras. Just me. I'm Brian, I said. And I didn't come here tonight to tell you how to fix your relationship. I came here to tell you that walking away doesn't make you weak. And staying silent doesn't make you strong. I told them the story. Not just the part about the retreat, but the parts before that. The little silences. The cold dinners. The mornings where something in me already knew but didn't want to say it out loud. I told them about the mug. About the fire pit. And about what it feels like when the truth finally comes out. Not just about your partner, but about yourself. When I finished, no one clapped. That wasn't the kind of space this was. But a woman across from me, probably in her 60s, gave me a quiet nod. Her eyes were red. I think that meant more than applause ever would. That night, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I parked in front of the little lake near our old coffee shop. The one where Laura and I used to sit and talk about everything. I hadn't been there since before the retreat. I watched the moon reflect off the water. And then I pulled out my phone and started typing. I launched a small blog the next week. Nothing fancy, just a clean layout, white background, my name at the top, things I wish I said sooner. I posted the story, in full, start to finish, not dramatized, not filtered, just honest. And then I wrote more, little pieces, thoughts, letters I never sent, things I learned about what betrayal really teaches you, not about the person who hurt you, but about how much of yourself you were willing to abandon to keep things looking okay. The blog grew, slowly at first. Then quickly, people shared it, emailed me. Some wrote their own pieces and asked if I'd post them too. So I did. And before I knew it, something new was forming. Not just a place for pain, but a place for truth. I still fix heating systems during the day. But at night, I write. And for the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm waiting for something bad to happen. I'm not bracing for cold shoulders or half-truths. I'm not staring at a phone, hoping for a message that might never come. I'm living in the open, fully. And that, more than any fire pit confession or viral podcast, is the real victory. People ask me if I'll ever get back together with Laura. The answer is no, not out of hate, but out of peace. You can forgive someone without inviting them back in. You can let go without reaching for the door again. So that's my story. It started in the mountains, with a mug and a lie. It ended here, with me and the truth. And if you're reading this because you're where I once was, doubting, questioning, trying to convince yourself that things aren't as bad as they feel, let me just say this. You deserve honesty. You deserve clarity. You deserve a story that doesn't require you to look the other way just to keep it alive. Let go. Speak up. Stand tall. Because when the truth finally finds its voice, it can be louder than any lie. Subscribe to the channel